Shane van Gisbergen just pulled off another wild win at Watkins Glen, and the whole NASCAR world is calling him the best road racer ever. But one legend just stepped up and said, "Hold on a minute, not so fast." Kyle Petty isn't buying the hype, and the name he brought up to compare with SVG has fans talking nonstop. So let's break down what Petty said, why he said it, and why this whole debate just got a whole lot bigger. Let's start with what SVG did on Sunday at Watkins Glen, because it was something special. The triple Supercars champion was sitting almost 30 seconds behind the leaders with just 25 laps to go. Most drivers would have given up. SVG didn't. He hunted them down, picked them off one by one, and crossed the line first. It was his 7th road course win in only 3 years in NASCAR. Think about that for a second. 3 years. 7 wins on road courses. That puts him tied for 3rd place all time. The only 2 guys ahead of him are Jeff Gordon with 9 wins and Tony Stewart with 8. So yeah, fans are losing their minds and calling him the greatest road racer NASCAR has ever seen. But here's where Kyle Petty stepped in. Speaking on NASCAR's Inside the Race, Petty wasn't trying to take anything away from SVG. He even said SVG is the class of the field at this point in time. But he pushed back hard on the idea that this Kiwi driver is the best ever. Petty has seen a lot of great road racers in his time. He remembers watching Dan Gurney tear up road courses. He saw Tim Richmond do things that left people speechless. And of course, Jeff Gordon, who still holds the all-time record. But then Petty brought up a name that made everyone perk up. Marcos Ambrose, the Australian. Now, if you don't remember Marcos Ambrose, here's the quick version. He spent 9 years in the NASCAR Cup Series. He won twice at Watkins Glen, the same track where SVG just dominated. And those 2 wins came driving for Richard Petty Motorsports. That's Kyle Petty's father's team. So Kyle saw Ambrose up close. He saw what that guy could do behind the wheel. And Petty said it straight up. I think Marcos Ambrose was just as good as SVG. I will say that. Yeah, he said it. Just as good. Then Petty laid out his reasoning. And honestly, it makes you stop and think. He said the key thing people are missing is the equipment, the car. Marcos Ambrose was driving a car that wasn't even close to the best stuff out there. SVG, on the other hand, is in a car that can actually win races. Petty put it like this. He said Marcos was in a car at a lower level, while Shane is in a car that fights and can win. He called it a totally different situation. And then Petty dropped the line that really got people talking. He said if Marcos had been in the same type of car as SVG, we would be talking about him, and Shane would be Marcos Ambrose. Point 2, he would be the second coming of him. Read that again. Petty is basically saying SVG would be the copy, and Ambrose would be the original. Petty also said something a lot of older fans agree with. He thinks Marcos Ambrose never got enough credit for raising the bar. I don't think Marcos gets enough credit for how he made other drivers step up and get better, Petty said. When Ambrose showed up, the regular Cup guys had to actually figure out how to race road courses, because this Aussie was beating them at their own game in worse equipment. Now let's talk about the time difference, because this is huge. Ambrose raced in NASCAR before the next-gen car came along. The next-gen car that SVG drives today is actually pretty close to the supercars he raced back home in Australia. So when SVG jumped from supercars to NASCAR, the change wasn't too crazy. Petty explained it perfectly. Shane came over and got out of one supercar and got in another supercar and just picked up right where he left off. It was almost the same kind of car. But Marcos, totally different story. The cars Ambrose had to drive in NASCAR back then were nothing like his Australian supercars. Petty didn't hold back on this one. Marcos came over here, he got in an antique, and he had to race against these guys, he said. And then this line, he got in a car that was designed off a '65 Ford station wagon. He had to relearn how to race. A station wagon from 1965. That's what Petty is comparing Ambrose's NASCAR ride to. Imagine being one of the best road racers on the planet and being handed something that drives like your grandpa's old grocery getter. And still winning at Watkins Glen. Twice. Then Petty brought up SVG's famous win in Chicago back in 2023. SVG won his very first NASCAR Cup race on the streets of Chicago, in the rain. It was unbelievable. But Petty added some context that a lot of newer fans don't know. NASCAR didn't even race in the rain before that. Petty said it with a smile. "We didn't know how to race in the rain. We sat in the back of the trucks and told lies and played cards when it rained at a cup track." That's how Petty remembers it. Rain meant pack up the gear and tell stories. SVG showed up and changed all that. So Petty wraps this part up by saying, "So it is all timing. It's being right place, right time." Now here's where it gets really interesting. SVG is winning all these races even though every other driver can see exactly what he's doing in the car. NASCAR has this thing called the SMT system. It basically lets teams pull the data from other cars, including SVG's. So in theory, every team should be able to copy what he does. But they can't. And there's a big reason why. SVG uses something called right foot braking. Most NASCAR drivers brake with their left foot. SVG brakes with his right foot, which lets him use the clutch on downshifts to control the back wheels of the car. It's a totally different way of driving, and it gives him control that nobody else has. Other drivers are trying to copy it. On Sunday, the broadcast even mentioned that three-time Cup champion Joey Logano gave right foot braking a shot during practice. But when the race came around, Logano switched back to his old way. It just wasn't working for him under pressure. And Petty says that's the whole problem for these veterans. You can't just pick up a new driving style after 20 years. Listen, if you hadn't been heeling and towing since day one, you're not going to heel and tow at this point in time in your career and catch up to Shane van Gisbergen, he said. Then he added, "You're just not. It's just not going to happen. That's a tough pill to swallow if you're one of those Cup veterans." Petty is basically saying the older drivers can't catch up. The only way for NASCAR to find another SVG is through the young guys coming up. Petty named two of them specifically, Connor Zilisch and Ty Gibbs. Those are the names to watch. The kids who can still learn this stuff, who can still build their craft around it. Everyone else has missed the boat. So that's the big picture here. SVG is putting up numbers that look like greatest ever stuff. But Kyle Petty is reminding everyone that you have to look at the whole story. The car, the era, the technology, the way the sport itself has changed. Marcos Ambrose was doing crazy things in a station wagon. SVG is doing crazy things in a car that fits his style like a glove. And the next great road racer in NASCAR probably isn't here yet. He's probably some young driver right now, learning to heel and tow like SVG did when he was a kid back in New Zealand.